this segment, we have a very, very amazing guest who works as an assistant producer with Sky Sports. Welcoming Maryam Chaudhary. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Very welcome. How are you today?
I'm very well. I've been very well fed before the show, so
That's
I feel
good.
very happy.
That's good. We always like a happy guest, but of course. So you work with Sky Sports and you work as an assistant producer. Now, before we dive into that role as a whole, what inspired you to join media?
Do you know what? Where do we begin? I had a bit of a bonkers start, let's say that. I've always enjoyed sport growing up, and I used to play a lot of hockey.
Wow.
And I decided that, I want to be a hockey player. And then, of course, at 18, I've got fake knees now because I've done my legs in playing hockey. Yeah. So that kind of went a bit downhill for me.
Right.
So whilst I was playing sport, I used to also work in Sports Direct, and I was there for about 7 years. And throughout university, my A-levels, I was always there, and I had no idea what I really wanted to do because I thought, sport was the path for me. And then it wasn't until I saw a woman called Seema Jaswal while I was on my lunch break, still working for Sports Direct, at the time. And I was on my lunch break and I was like, oh my God, there's this Asian woman who looks like me, and she also loves football, and she was a presenter for the Champions League, BT Sport as well. So I was like, oh my gosh, there's someone that looks like me. That's exactly what I want to do. So I messaged Seema Jaswal on Gmail, not expecting a reply. And she got back to me the next day and basically told me to pursue my dreams in media.
And so when you got the message, what did you do instantly? What sort of path did you go ahead in terms of, I want to accomplish this dream? How did you go about it?
So I kind of that message gave me a lot of drive and a lot of motivation because I was like, oh my gosh, someone believes in me, so I can just do anything. So from then, I was still at Sports Direct. I just messaged a load of people on LinkedIn, just some random people. And obviously a lot of people didn't reply back. But then I had one amazing individual from BBC Sport, lovely man, and he said, I'm going to meet you for a coffee. And it was just a generic chat, nothing really out of it. Yeah. So I went to meet him, and he got me a coffee, and he kind of told me that I'm from Wales. Yeah. So he told me that Cardiff University do a master's degree in broadcast journalism. You should apply for it. And I was like, oh God, I'm never going to get that. No, that's not. I don't think I'm going to do that. Right. And so I called the uni, and I had a few inquiries, and they were like, oh, just to let you know, the deadline for that master's is in 2 days.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I think my mother's watching this, so I should thank my mother because she spent long nights with me writing a personal statement for me to get into that
university. Yeah.
And I never thought I would, but the next day they gave me a call back asking me for an interview. And
that's amazing. And then once you joined university, what was the opportunities like at university? Were there vast opportunities in terms of experience that you could gain outside of just studying and so on? Cardiff University was brilliant. Yes. So I did my undergrad in history. Wow, so it's a big difference. It's a massive difference. Yes. So, I didn't, obviously I wanted to pursue sport. I didn't get to do that. So I did an undergrad in history thinking I wanted to be a teacher. Then I got to third year and I was like, oh, I really don't want to do this. No, I don't want to do this anymore. Yeah. So, around that time they were very, very supportive. But after that when I had my knee injury, I was like, I don't really know what I want to do with my life. And then obviously working in retail, Seema Jaswal messaging me, and me getting into the postgrad at Cardiff University, they were amazing. They were phenomenal. I think I was the only South Asian in that class, but that university never made me feel less than what I am, and they always encouraged me to do the best that I can. And then, of course, talking about the best you can, you then, of course, moved on to find a career in media. So, I mean, it's not easy to get these opportunities, where you can be like, hey, can I do some work experience? Can I get a job with you? So how did you go about sort of tackling that obstacle? Because it is an obstacle. So what was your way of handling it at the time?
Oh my God, let me tell you. So I think being from Wales, you're so right. You don't see people that look like us, especially in sports media as well. It's just not a thing that I ever saw until I saw someone on social media that looked like me. Yeah. And Yeah, it was hard. It was hard to begin with. I came out of my postgrad and I was like, okay, well, like, where do I go from here? It's really difficult to get your foot in the door. I was messaging so many people on LinkedIn, and of course they just give you advice.
Yes.
But you're like, okay, how can I actually pursue my goal? What can I do? So I did a lot of freelance opportunities. So I used to work for global news for LBC Capital and Heart FM.
Wow.
And I did freelance work for them, which meant that, I wasn't on a contract, I was on a 0-hours contract. Whatever they needed me to do, I would do it. As simple as like getting them coffee or just like phoning up. And I don't think like people realize like those kind of opportunities, even if it's getting someone a coffee, you make those contacts and you make those connections.
Yes.
So I think that was my first kind of foot in the door.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then once you've put your foot in the door, it's now trying to keep the door open. So then, of course, you went from working with Global, and then of course, I understand you worked with BBC Sports. So where did that opportunity come from? How did they find you? And of course, I'm sure they found great talent because you're here with us telling us your story. So how did this happen?
I'm sure maybe a few of them are watching right now, so be
I'm sure
careful.
they are.
Yeah, so that was a massive jump for me because my postgrad was in journalism.
Yes.
And the role that I had at BBC Sport was an assistant producer. So it was still similar traits of the role, but it was very different in terms of like a job title and what I needed to do. So it was stressful, I'm not gonna lie. Like there were like nights where I was like, I shouldn't be here, like what am I doing here? But then it's just like, for me, I always kind of told myself that no, like I'm qualified, like I worked really hard to be here, but I had to learn a lot of things. And I think for me, like that role was so important, even though, it was stressful. Like I was asking people, what do I need to do to be better?
Yeah.
So that, was really, really important for
And
me.
what was the support like at the BBC, of course? Like, were they helping you sort of work on those sorts of parts that you needed to improve on?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, they were great as well. And I'm very lucky. I think with every kind of opportunity that I've gone into, there's always been people around that have been extremely, extremely supportive. I think that's the world of sports media. Like we all love football, we all love sport. We just enjoy the job, and I think that's the beauty about being with BBC, even with Sky Sports right now. Everyone is so supportive in what you do, and people genuinely want you to get ahead. So I've only had positive experiences.
No, that's good, alhamdulillah. And of course, the transition from then BBC Sports to Sky News, I mean, was it a big jump? What was it like? You work as an assistant producer now, so I mean, what was the jump like from there? It
was actually a lot seamless. I feel like I got all the stress out when I was with the BBC Sport, like all the tears, and oh my God, am I going to be here? But I feel like that role kind of prepared me for my current role within Sky Sports now, and I'm so grateful for that. But yeah, I mean, it's not, it wasn't an easy process, but. Of course.
I mean, because it was an easy process, what would you say, what is a message that you would give your younger self, of course, if you looked back and said, you know what, I'd do this differently, or maybe do the same thing? What would you tell yourself?
I tell myself to warm up. Firstly, when you play sport, that's so important. Like your knees are so important in life. But no, genuinely, I think as cliche as it sounds, is just believe in yourself. Like there's nothing that you can't do, and I think our minds are so important, and they're so key in shifting. Those. If you want an opportunity, like you can go for it. There are people out there doing the things that you want to do, but you just have to not be afraid to look for them.
Of course, and looking for opportunities. I mean, what are great places to look for these opportunities, especially in media, would you say?
I'd say LinkedIn. Oh my gosh, like LinkedIn was the one for me. I can only kind of speak from my experience, but I know like LinkedIn is a very professional community. Like of course you've got Instagram, you've got Facebook, Twitter, but LinkedIn is like a stream of professionals. So if you see someone that you like or someone doing the same role as you, like I'd encourage anyone watching to not be afraid to message anyone on LinkedIn, because the worst someone can do is say no. Like they're not gonna get your arm chopped off or anything like that. Like the worst you can do is ask advice and they can say no. But it might turn around that all it takes is, for 50 no's, you get that one yes, and that's all you need to push yourself.
No, of course. And I mean, pushing yourself is a big deal, of course. I find it very difficult as well sometimes, like pushing myself to do the things I want to do, and of course trying to juggle the job that I'm doing right now, and then trying to say, you know what, you want to become a barrister, you want to keep going. And of course I will follow in the steps of Farhan Mukit, who of course was on the show before you, and I think I find it very hard. So what helps you in terms of that motivation? Like, what gets you up in the morning? Is like, you know what, I'm going to go for it on days where you feel down?
Firstly, I think you should give yourself a pat on the back or like a big little clap because, yeah, like you're doing phenomenal things as well. I think for me is, I like to think that I go to bed at night not having any regrets, and I can, you know, alhamdulillah, I can say that I don't.
Alhamdulillah.
Like, I went for my dreams and I'm now living them. And I think, you know, I spoke about my mother as well, my parents as well. Like, my mum was the one who always pushed me to follow my dreams, and you know, I mean, I wouldn't be here without her today. No, but for me, that motivation is like, I can wake up every morning doing a job that I completely love, and I enjoy going into work, and I just feel like I've got so much fulfillment in that.
Of course, and alhamdulillah for that. And talking about fulfillment, I mean, in the next 4 to 5 years, where do you see yourself?
Well, you know, I'm a little bit on the shorter side, so I was hoping I'd get, maybe growing a couple of inches. Maybe that's the dream. But I think I'd like to think that I'd still be in the same industry as well. But I'd like to think that one day there'd be a girl also working in retail that looks at her phone and sees someone like me. And of course, I think I'd love that to be the goal.
Inshallah, maybe they reach out to you on LinkedIn and maybe you give them advice, inshallah. Of course, if there was a message that you wanted to pass on to our audience watching, and someone who's looking for a career in media or broadcasting or that sort of area, what would you advise them?
I think I'd say don't be afraid to be yourself. Like, I think your uniqueness, your talents will always shine through to the people that believe in you. And I think that would be like my one piece of advice, like, to anybody. Yeah, don't be afraid to take opportunities, reach out to people. Those opportunities are always going to be there for you, but you have to take those steps yourself to be able to reach them.
And does it matter how big or small those opportunities are?
No, it can be anything. Like, you know, you want to be an astronaut, you want to be a pilot, you want to do anything, you can do it. But your mindset is so important in helping you achieve that. And I feel like once you have that shift, you know, doors, inshallah, they will open for you, but don't be afraid to talk to people.
Of course not. Thank you so much for being on the show today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Very welcome.